HAI has been in business now for about a year and a half. And we have been, one of the things that I think we've been remiss in is not taking as many opportunities as we could to try to report to the community. I mean, we view the entire Stanford faculty as our community. And we haven't taken enough time, paid enough attention to telling you all both what's happening and talking about ways of getting more intimately involved in the Institute. So what we have designed this session today, I should start by saying that Feifei asked me to remind everybody that we're doing this, everybody has control of your own audio. So anybody who at any point wants to speak up can speak up. But the other side of that is it would be nice if everybody self-muted themselves when they aren't speaking. I think that would be probably helpful. So we're primarily here to listen, and I'll describe a little bit about how we're going to structure the town hall to try to gather the maximum amount of input from you. So Feifei and I will start by just saying a few words about what's been going on, what has been happening at HAI for the last year and a half. And we're going to actually ask one of the associate directors, Russ Altman, to talk a little bit about how to get involved. We anticipate that will take about 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And then we are going to break into rooms, into separate groups. Hopefully the groups will be on the order of no more than 10 or 12 people. In each of the groups, we will have one of the associate directors and a staff person. The staff person will be there to take notes, and the associate director will be there to ask the kinds of questions that we need to get feedback on. And then we're going to come back in and have a chance to have a more open discussion with everybody. So that's how the session is planned. Let me show you this slide. This is a slide of the faculty leadership as it exists today. The associate directors and Eric Brynjolfsson, who is currently our one senior fellow, and he's also the director of the Digital Economy Lab. These will be the people that will be in the various breakout rooms and will be guiding the discussion. So, and also answering any questions when we can't answer the questions. So, Feifei.
Great, thanks. So, like John was saying, so great to see everybody, but so sad that we're not gathering somewhere in the quad and having wine and cheese together. So just quickly, just remind everybody, for those of us who are involved in HAI day and night, it feels already like long 2 years, but it is still a new organization. We were founded by a mission that's shared by so many faculty and researchers and students across Stanford, which is that we believe it's a critical historical time that we bring together this institute to advance AI research, education, policy, and practice to improve the human condition. It is the moment that AI is part of the transformative technologies that's changing human society rapidly. Next, John. And based on that, HAI is founded on 3 intellectual pillars or research areas that most of our work it centers around. And each of the three starts with each of the 3 letters. The first one is human impact, is to focus on the study, forecast, and guide the human and societal aspect of AI. Here we recognize a very important recognition of HAI is AI is no longer a niche computer science discipline. It's deeply multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. In fact, many of the most important questions of AI, whether it's ethics or democracy or law or fairness and future of work, belongs to or needs the leadership and involvement of social science and humanities to guide the research. So that's the human impact. Second tenant or research area we focus on is actually a verb that's very important for us, and that verb is augment. Especially in the public talk of AI, the verb replace tend to come to dominate the voices, but we deeply believe that by bringing the human-centered design thinking and application into AI research, this technology can augment and enhance human capabilities, whether it's in education, healthcare, manufacturing, automation, agriculture, sustainability, and much beyond. And last but not the least is that as much as AI is an exciting area of research, it is also very, very nascent. It's only, the technical field is only 60 years old, more or less, and the interdisciplinary field is much younger. And one of the most important bet or belief we have is that we need to be more inspired by the nuance, the flexibility, and the inner workings of human mind, human brain, and also human behavior. So HAI deeply believes in the interdisciplinary collaboration with the neuroscience, psychology, and cognitive science community to advance AI technology that is inspired by the versatility and depth of human intelligence. And just last week, we had an annual conference on this area of research. We don't want to belabor the details, but one thing that really truly is humbles me and is an honor in the past 2 years or year and a half is working with various partners and affiliated centers on campus. And this is an ongoing list. We expect this list to be expanding in the future of the kind of partners we have. We have many details we could share, but we don't have time now. But you can see it really spans from humanities to arts to social sciences to pre-collegiate programs and so on. So this is, later Russ will give you even more pointers on how to get involved, and we hope to see this list expanding in the future. So next, John and I would just take a quick moment to you already actually got a pre-read document that gives you a very gentle touch on what we have been busy doing in the past 1 year and a half. Like we said, one of the things we wish we could have done better is having more conversations with you, with our community. But we have been doing some of that through various work. Some of the areas here are some of the areas of work we have done. On the research side, we have had a series of grant programs, from seed grants to our Hoffman research grant programs, and we are very excited to be to have involved, funded altogether more than 100 faculty across Stanford, more than 50 plus seed grants projects and 6 Hoffman seed grant project, Hoffman grants and projects, and this is going to be ongoing. And we are also giving out cloud credits or compute resources as part of our grant research program. And this has been very important for a lot of researchers across campus that needs a lot of compute for machine learning and AI. we're piloting a very exciting interdisciplinary program called Ethics Review Board Pilot, which is spearheaded by a number of faculty across School of Humanities and Natural Sciences, CASPAS, and School of Engineering, on evaluating potential benefits and harms of our HAI research. Last but not least, we want to highlight the launching of a new digital economy lab that's headed by Professor Eric Brynjolfsson, focusing on the research initiatives on AI and digital economy, future of work, business organization, income inequality, and so on. So these are just the research highlights. And John, do you want to go over policy and education?
Yeah, so let me say a little bit about what we've been doing on, to follow this order, on first on the education side. So we have a very ambitious education and outreach mission, and it's both education internally, that is to say within the campus with our traditional students, but we also have an education mission that extends beyond the campus. On the first point, the education internally, we are just now launching in partnership with the Symbolic Systems program a symbolic systems track on human-centered AI. And I think that's Mike Frank, who is the director of the Symbolic Systems program, spearheaded that and worked with us to come up with a track. We're also about to launch an embedded ethics program in the computer science department, which we're doing along with the McCoy Center on Ethics. We have some funding from a generous donor that will allow us to incorporate ethics segments, ethics topics within computer science classes. And so we call this embedded ethics because it's embedded in the computer science curriculum in individual courses rather than a separate course on ethics. So I think this is something that's quite exciting. Now, Terry Winograd years and years ago pioneered teaching ethics within computer science, and this is sort of, I see this as a grandchild of Terry's vision. Externally, we've done some work. We had in partnership with FSI, the Freeman Spogli Institute, and the Hoover Institution, we put on an AI and cybersecurity boot camp last summer for congressional staff. This was very, very successful. We've done a similar sort of thing, although just a one-day session for tech journalists. We also had an exec ed course that was a one-week course that was quite successful. And we're doing more and more programs of that sort, where we're trying to reach out and reach different professionals that need to have some education in what AI really is and what's the hype, what's the reality of AI. So on the education side, those are some of the things that we've done. On the policy side, we've been working both at the national level and the international level and within the campus. So at the national level, we've pushed for what we're calling a national research cloud. So this is, so for those of you involved in AI, you realize that one of the prohibitive things about the most advanced AI research is the cost of computing and the access or difficulty accessing the kinds of data that would allow training of deep neural nets. So we have proposed that the government institute a national research cloud, which would provide reduced cost computing, access to a cloud infrastructure for faculty and students at universities and at other nonprofits. That currently, the legislation for that is currently proceeding in both houses of Congress. On the House side, It's been incorporated into the National Defense Authorization Act, and it is currently being considered for incorporation on the Senate side. So that is moving ahead, and we'll be very happy if that actually succeeds. We've also launched, along with a number of partners, including the World Bank, the World Health Organization, UNESCO, and the Patrick McGovern Foundation, we've launched an initiative called KAYAK, Collective and Augmented Intelligence Against COVID-19. So this is providing access to vast amounts of data and research on coronaviruses in general, and accumulating that and providing easy access to researchers. And so that's a project that is on its way. Finally, I want to mention we just launched a policy brief series, and this is one of the ways that I hope a lot of you will get involved. We have a team that can help you if you've done research that has policy applications. We have a team that can help you take that and put it in the form of a policy brief, which is accessible to policymakers. So I hope that will be something that a lot of people at Stanford find valuable. So I guess that's what we'd like to say, just as a quick rundown of some of the things that we've done in the past year. Russ Altman is going to say a few words about how to get involved with HAI. Are you here, Russ?
Yes, thanks very much, John. I want to apologize. I'm coming to you from Truckee, where everyone is using the internet. So if I blank out, I apologize. Yes, so quickly, to the number one question I get, and I think a lot of us get, is how can people get involved? And so as James has put in the chat, a link to this document, which you should have received. And so if you can just ignore me and tune me out if you're sick of my voice. But I just want to say a few things about that. So the number one thing is to understand our mission. I think Fei-Fei just gave you a beautiful summary of the mission. There's websites, there's our communications. I think understanding the mission is the first step. And our mission is to make sure that humans and humanity are central as we develop AI. And the reason we're an institute is that this mission cuts across all schools and all departments. So the number one message, I think, is that there is no department that is out of bounds. And in fact, bringing a new department into the fold is a huge excitement for us. Now, although we have some faculty leadership and a very capable staff, the next phase is to build programs, scholarly communities, and demonstrate leadership in our mission. And this is where we need the effort of the participating faculty. We need to form a robust community of scholars. This is really the number one mandate, a robust community of scholars that engage in intellectual exchange across science, engineering, the arts, law, business, education, earth science, everything. And then this group, because of these communications, will identify key opportunities and challenges for human-centered AI. So I'm not going to go on too long, I promise. But like all academic organizations, we want to build this community through some basic activities, catalyzing and accelerating your research, both as you vision it now, your research or your work, your academic work. I say research because I'm at the medical school, but your academic work, whatever that is, we want to catalyze it, accelerate it, and frankly, we might want to change its direction to consider human-centered issues in AI. We want to help you train, teach, and mentor students and others. And we want to create shared resources, both human resources, computational resources, other resources that contribute to this community of teaching, research, and scholarly work. All of this conspires to create this HAI community. Now, we want to be a little bit more specific. That's where this form comes in. It reviews many categories of things. So I don't know if we have it. Yeah, we do have it up on the screen. Thank you. You can't read that, which is perfect. it falls under general ideas. This is not magic. This was the associate directors brainstorming and sending ideas to the staff who then created this. There is research ideas, co-sponsor workshops, review grant applications, identify research that you've done that should be a policy brief. You can write for our blog or for our websites. You can share interesting work. Of course, you can teach a new class with HAI collaboration and support. You can create new things, new educational mission, new research. You can increase diversity. Diversity in AI doesn't always get a good name. We want to change that. If there's anything human, it would be the diversity, equity, and inclusion of our center and the mandate for that. You could be a liaison. If you're involved in a center or a department or any kind of effort and you feel like there needs to be a connection to HAI, let us know, be that conduit. Let's figure out what programs jointly make sense. You can lead things, you can attend things. Thank you for attending today. And then you can look at our website. So I wanted to make this a little bit even more real by giving some examples, and then I will finish up, I promise. There is now a symbolic systems undergraduate concentration in HAI that the symbolic systems leadership, Mike Frank and others, were passionate about. We worked with them. They wanted to do this. We wanted them to do it. And now if you're an undergraduate, you can have this concentration in human-centered AI. There's been several faculty-initiated workshops that once the topic came up, we just said, yes, let's do this. There was one on AI and climate change that Kate Maurer led, and there was one on facial recognition that Manish Agrawala led. Sometimes when we do our fall and spring meetings, people identify the fact that there will, especially when we do them in person, there will be a concentration of people. Let's bring them into a breakout meeting. And so we have these little satellite meetings that organically form around these events. Still possible with Zoom, but even better when the people have flown in and there's an opportunity to grab them for another half day or whatever. And then James Zhu has started an executive education class on valuing data in the context of AI. So these are all things that have really happened. And we know that you guys are chomping at the bit. And we want to welcome your ideas and your leadership in kind of taking us to this community that we want to build. So what does HAI bring? And then I'm done. An amazing network of faculty throughout the university who have claimed and exclaimed they are interested in human-centered AI. So we can rapidly mobilize people that you need to interact with. An unbelievably capable staff, overworked, but unbelievably capable, who with appropriate support can support new efforts. And then some funds. As you know, we have our seed funds. You've heard about from John and Feifei how we've spent some of our money. But we have some funds that we can use to support some new efforts. So that's the short answer about why we're excited about your involvement. And we anticipate that this will be a lively topic in the breakout groups. So thanks very much, John and Feifei, for allowing me to say all those things.
Okay, so now we're going to see how the technology works. We're going to break you all up into breakout groups. If everything goes well, every breakout group will have some associate director or co-director of HAI in it. And these are the questions that we would like to focus on in the breakout groups. What are your questions about HAI that we can answer? How are you interested in getting more involved? And what ideas do you have for how we can do more or do things better? So I will now ask the staff to do your magic and break us all up. Okay, I think we're roughly speaking all back together. And I guess Feifei and I would like to invite any of you who were in any of the sessions, but in particular, the associate directors, to mention anything that came up that was of interest that you think would be good to.
And Mike Salito, our deputy director, will be moderating this.
So I think some things of interest came up in my group. You know, breakout room number 6. So one was Nigam Shah brought up the idea that the medical school and medicine at Stanford is really the only place at Stanford where we actually have a multi-billion-dollar business. How might we take advantage of it to actually deploy and apply some of the AI technologies, would try real interventions into our health system, and that folks there are open to that. So, how might we leverage HAI more in these applied areas rather than just theoretical areas? And another one that I thought was really interesting is Ed Feigenbaum, who's really one of the fathers of AI, who we're lucky to have here on our faculty, brought up really in some ways our augmentation theme, and that, the real interesting applications are where it's going to be people together with AI solving hard problems. And I wanted to point out that our conferences that we've held so far have had themes, with the one that was brilliantly run by Surya and Chris last week about the intelligence and the connections to the neuroscience. And our first one after the kickoff being about human impact. Our next conference that's going to be in late March is really about A, or augmentation. So how we can think about intelligence augmentation and AI. So this is a theme we want to push forward going forward over the next 6 months.
Thanks, James. Michelle Elam?
Yeah, we also had a really interesting group also with folks from the School of Medicine, and also the Center for, I don't have it up in front of me now, it's the computation, oh, here it is. Stanford Performance Vision and Human Perception Lab. And the theme across some of the discussions, which really were interesting, was one around mentorship, actually, that participating in learning about AI in order to help mentor everyone from undergraduates to postdocs. So being Sarah Donaldson, just sort of being a resource more broadly was really interesting. And then thinking also about, again, how AI can be useful both in radiation and oncology and Department of CS, Department of Surgery. So folks were also thinking about application in advance of it, how and where can AI be useful in a medical setting. So that was really interesting, actually, and just sort of generative. But then Russell, I don't know if you were taking some notes into, if you wanted to mention a couple other things. Is Russell in here?
Yeah, I'm here. I think Michelle captured a lot of it, but I think we had a lot of people from the School of Medicine in some capacity or another. And I think the one thing that stood out was a greater relationship between HAI and the School of Medicine, which Michelle and I 100% agree with, and we were really excited about that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Chris Manning.
Yeah, so the main substantive discussion we had is about how can people get involved and sort of what are the pathways and what would help. So I started explaining a bit about a proposal that Russ and I had developed of Affinity++ groups, which is still maybe kind of right, apart from it never got implemented because COVID-19 came along instead. But, the basic problem is, well, it clearly just can't work to say, okay, all of HAI is going to get together because it's just much too vast and disparate. And so it seems like somehow we need to find subgroups that have some interests in common, whether it's a topic like the future of work or building bridges between cog-sci, neuroscience, and AI. And then we sort of talked more about things that do or don't work. I mean, for some people, apparently already the sort of Hoffman-Yee grants are a great way of creating nucleus communities. And well, maybe some of those grants could actually have expanded communities around them with similar interests. We talked a bit about how there are actually also already lots of things on campus in different areas and departments. And then the question is, well, how can HAI connect itself to them? I mean, one way is just that we, apply them with a little bit of money, but are there better ways to connect to that? And then finally, one of the ways that people try and get involved is by applying to our grant programs. And one of the ways I think we clearly have to do better, but it's really come down to this person power thing as we try and bootstrap, is, at the moment, if you don't hit the nail on the head and get funded, we kind of give you no feedback. And so that's not providing a very good pathway as to what kind of things are we interested in and how could you make what you're interested in closer to the kind of thing we'd fund. So that's maybe something we really need to work on.
Thanks, Chris. Surya.
Yeah, these are all great ideas. So our group was dominated by economists. So the idea that we came up with was the notion of a clearinghouse that can match people to problems, to AI techniques. So that the triumvirate was, we're all looking for interesting questions to solve. There are maybe interesting data sets that are out there that might be pertinent to some questions and not others. And various subsets of us have interesting AI techniques that we can apply. So can we create a clearinghouse where we bring together questions, data sets, and techniques together and help them find each other in ways that go above and beyond the serendipitous interactions that faculty have, like maybe meeting each other at a in-person town hall or something and realizing they have a shared common interest. So of course, we didn't hammer out all the details of how we would do that, but I think it would be really, that's kind of what we need to get people as far flung across the campus as like history and CS or economics and reinforcement learning or something like that. So I'm actually quite excited about this idea of creating a clearinghouse. And if you have any thoughts on how we might go about doing that, it could be as simple as a Slack channel, but it could be much more sophisticated than that, and should be, I think. That would be something I'd be interested in actually trying to help implement, and I'd love to hear your ideas on that.
Thanks, Surya. Dan Ho.
Our group spent a bunch of time getting to know each other and ran a little bit out of time, but it was actually one of the really fun things in this socially distanced era, just to get to know new folks that you don't usually run into. There were really two topics of conversation. The first centered around sort of the pedagogical mission of HI. Right now, folks within our group mentioned that right now there are 2 new master's degree programs being established in the Graduate School of Education, Master's in Science and Education of Data Science. Sarah Singer mentioned the new MS degree in Clinical Informatics, and actually there was a kind of thirst for trying to figure out what are the commonalities that we're trying to wrestle with in designing these new curricula, and is there a way that HI could help lead some of those discussions. And then the second, I think, builds on what Surya and Chris already mentioned in terms of a lot of discussion around how to make these kinds of serendipitous connections that we often miss when we're completely virtual. So Chris had mentioned the affinity group, Surya mentioned the clearinghouse, and actually what started to happen within our breakout group is already a little bit of that matchmaking, just very informally, of folks kind of saying, well, have you talked to this person and whatnot? And so that was just really nice to see, but I like the more institutional solutions mentioned by the other breakout groups as well.
Russ.
Yeah, we also had a great conversation. I think 2 points were, and this echoes what we've heard before, there was a hunger for some organization at the medical school. I think there's a ton of AI and machine learning and going on at the medical school. It's not all HAI, but a lot of it could be. And so the idea of creating a seminar series or something where we model some of these HAI principles as applied to medical applications might grow that community very organically, because there is a hunger for it and there's just a need to kind of flesh it out a little bit. And the second one was just how impressive, I hope that Anthony forgives me, but the Department of Psychology has really engaged in HAI at many levels. And it was just fun. This was actually just part of his introduction, but it was super fun to hear how a departmental HAI relationship can blossom and flourish. And it's really a model for how, so go talk to your local psychology faculty, because it seems like they have a good working relationship with HAI that could be a model for many.
Thanks, Russ. We have a couple of minutes left if anyone else wants to jump in with any comments from the audience.
I thought you missed Susan Athey.
Oh, well, Susan.
We had the best breakout group. Susan?
Yep. So I think actually it was a lot of this great discussion and meeting people, and we talked about also serendipity, and maybe we want to do some get-togethers even during the pandemic. One very specific idea we talked about was that we actually had a couple people who were interested in gathering data and the process of running experiments. So there was a seed of a focus group or affinity group among people who are going to actively collect data on humans, interacting with them and being able to get feedback on designing their experiments, looking for collaborations, also thinking about ethical issues, and possibly, gathering data about multiple subjects in the same experiments if we found ways to meet up. So that's something we may want to be able to take forward. And also we wanted to use AI to help us search the medical literature more effectively. So that seemed like an application that would be good for science and thus humanity.
This was an assignment for Russ Altman. We need to solve the problem of people that pay attention only to the last year's publications.
Thank you. Noted.
So we're down to the last few minutes here. Maybe we're over by a minute. Does anyone else want to jump in aside from HEIS faculty leaders with any final questions, comments, remarks?
I actually have this is Anthony Wagner in psychology. As Stanford High was rolling out, I think Fei-Fei and John, we spoke about graduate student SIGFs and things like that. And forgive me, is that part of the program? Or is that sort of, can you speak to that, given how central graduate students are often for marrying us together?
Yeah, so Anthony, it is not currently part of the program, but that's only because we haven't raised the money for it yet. So it is one of our targeted priorities in fundraising, and we just have to find the right person or the right group of people that would be interested in funding a program, an SIGF type program. So, so it has not started yet, but we're hoping to get it.
As I'm sure we all experience, the graduate students break out of our walls more so than we do, and often find wonderful ways for us to, they see the connections. So great. Thank you for everything you're doing.
So Fei-Fei, why don't you say some final words, inspirational final words?
That's John's way of outsourcing his work. No, just really, really heartened by seeing everybody here. I was thinking to myself, why didn't we do this earlier? Even though we feel like we really need 48 hours per day. But truly, we should do this more. And at the end of the day, HAI and everything we do at Stanford is about people, is about this amazing community of talents, and is about the next generation of leaders. So we really truly want to build this community. We want to serve this community well, and we want to grow this community. So just keep in touch. We've given you some links so that you can stay in touch, and we want to find ways to engage you and empower your work. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for hosting.